Good morning. Welcome along to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain.
It's a beautiful Thursday morning. I'm Coyote Okikiodu from here in Lagos.
And hope you had a good night. Amaya Makine, welcome to the program. And to another day.
I hope you had a good flight.
Oh, yeah. Eating, take away, not eating. Yeah.
That's what the flight was about?
Yeah, I think it's
a highlight of the flight.
It is a highlight. For God's sake, the last time I flew, I didn't get anything.
So you got a
just
buffet?
water. Huh?
You got a buffet?
Yes, served on
a platter of takeaway.
Platter of Miley.
Oh dear.
Oh boy.
At least it's a step forward, so to speak. Initially, nothing was served at all. Previously, you get it in your seat. But now, initially nothing was served at all, just water that you picked yourself from the pocket. But now, that slight improvement is there. You get it as you exit the aircraft. I guess we can say things are gradually drawing
the
back to
vaccination
normal.
drive.
Even though some are complaining about the third wave, as though the second, well, we had the first, and then talk about second. Now they're talking about the third. UK is trying to put in place a fine for those who unnecessarily leave the UK.
Unnecessarily leave
Yeah, that's what they say, that if you leave without any valid reason, so they were considering
Isn't that an infringement?
5,000. Well, if the parliament passes it, what do you do? But anyway, good thing here. I think they're talking about opening. Is it Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kano Airport, several of the international airports. So the government is looking into that to see what happens. But we'll see how some of the dailies are reflecting some of these matters, because I bet they will today. But we do have Steve Wonsu joining us this morning. He's the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Express newspaper. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today.
Good morning,
program.
Chamberlain. Carl, nice to see you, and Ayo.
Good morning.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Welcome back from his flight.
Come on, guys. It's such a big deal.
Oh, no, you just got started.
Oh.
Which flight? He has a private jet.
It was a sudden flight. well, let's take a look at the Nigerian Tribune and see what they lead with today. Oh boy, they're not smiling actually. Northern Elders Forum to Buhari. Nigeria falling apart under your watch. So this is point blank. They have been at this for a while now. So yes, it is the big lead among several other stories. But yes, they may have said this. One wonders how seriously the government regards the NEF first, let alone this submission. So you think this will make any impact to the government?
Nigeria is falling apart. Well, if the government, I think the government can listen to them for a change. The Northern Elders Forum has initially supported the president and when he was coming on, but recently, since things have started going down south, they have been outspoken about the state of the country, and they have always been alerting the president about it. And I think coming from them, they are not the people you can easily brand as whalers, as they brand some of us. They are people that truly desire that the country can be better than it is now, and I think it's an advice that should be taken, and I'm happy it's coming from the Northern Elders Forum, so that you can't start interpreting anything about ethnicity or religion to this. Yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, and I see NIN compulsory for 2021 UTME registration ascribed to JAMB. I remember, I think Mondo Bani did get a judgment saying that they needed to extend the deadline for NIN by 2 months. So the court ruled in Lagos on that one, Federal High Court Lagos. But so what does this then mean? Does it then mean that, look, will they insist? If they stop them, can they sue JAMB?
I think there's another newspaper that made it the primary story this morning.
Oh, okay. So we'll hold on that one then. So that's Tribune this morning.
Well, take a look at Vanguard. Leads with a statement from Yetiala. Displaced herdsmen, now bandits. Another dimension to this. But let me take the writers before I get your perspective of this one. Nigeria falling apart. NEF, Afenifere, MBF, PANDEF, tell FG. Wake up to your responsibility, NEF spokesman FG should do the needful. Afenifere. You see, present government may midwife disintegration of Nigeria. Middle Belt Forum. Let's work together to end reign of terror. That's coming from Pandef. Blame governors for rise in banditry. Mieti Allah. So, it's quite a lot, really. But when you see this submission saying displaced herdsmen, now bandits, what do you make of it, really?
Displaced herdsmen, where were they coming from before? They've always been on the move. My fear is this issue of herdsmen and banditry that we keep hyping. I was listening to Sheikh Gumi the other time, and he was saying that they are angry because we are not addressing their grievances and stuff like that. Now I ask them, who doesn't have grievance? Who doesn't have something bones to pick with the government today? Why aren't all of us resorting to use of AK-47 to further our own debate? It's not that when you say displaced herdsmen, now bandits, where were they displaced from? They've always been on the move. So if these herdsmen that are actually displacing people, which was what led to what Otom has been shouting for, which they shot at him and now claim, and even the Funam, or what do they call it, claim the responsibility for it. It's not about, I don't think there is it's not all the herdsmen that are these bandits. I still want to believe. The bandits are coming from outside of this country. We have no issue with the herdsmen we've heard before. They've never claimed being displaced. The problem is...
But how do you know who is what?
Those in our security should know. They do know. When they open our borders, they know. It's a question of its issue is just like what I was saying about it's one thing not to know, it's one thing to know and not do anything. That which was what I was querying about this girl's story last 2-3 days ago when they said that Leah Sharibu has had a second baby and all that. And I said, if we are so on top of the issue, know when she had the first baby, know when she has the second baby, it means we are in contact. So why can't we rescue her, stuff like that? So the idea is that knowing what to do is different, doing it is another thing. So
can we also say they know what to do now that they've identified those who are quote and unquote bandits?
They know what to do. They know what to do. What this situation needs is just sincerity. Not even political will. It's sincerity, because we also, Buhari is a man we know to have strong will, and he has the will to do it if he really wants to do it. This issue of herdsmen and banditry and all that, let them stop this idea of making it look like every Fulani person out there is a bandit, or that every Fulani herder is kidnapping and robbing people. They know these people, they come in, these are remnants from the Maghreb, Burkina Faso and all of that. They know it, and they can check their influx. So let's just, let's stop deceiving ourselves like we don't know. They do know. And Shegumi said it, that they know. It's just that they don't want to go about it the way they have been going about it. I think they know.
You know, it turns out there are two versions, really, of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. What you see on your screen takes one of the riders, and the other one talks about the displaced herdsmen, now bandits. So perhaps for different regions, you might say. But the big picture on the front page, something that really touches my heart. You see water scarcity hits Abuja. You see residents of Durumi area fetching water from a stream as water scarcity hits part of Abuja. But you know, seeing that stream, seeing where they're actually fetching water from, just leaves so much to be desired. Oh dear, let me just take this one.
I'm wondering, just a second on that one, I'm wondering, you know, what we make of all of the headlines or, you know, international celebrations that we acknowledge. Just a few days ago, it was World Water Day.
Yeah.
And we're talking about valuing water. Yeah. Is there any value communicated here?
Yeah, there is here.
We join UN and celebrate all the days, but what? Just ask yourself, what does it really take to get clean water to people? what does it take to sink a borehole? But you see, these funds are approved. They will sink one borehole, and everybody, the special advisor on MDGs and all of them, will gather there and commission one borehole or two, and that's the end. Sometimes they even commission the borehole. The moment they leave, the water there has dried. Sometimes they sink the borehole and put a tank up there. They just use the water and they fill the water, use it to commission it, and after that, there's no water left. Okay. So that is, I think it's a big, and that is the source of most of the diseases that trouble us in this country. If we can get clean water, we would have battled some of these diseases that we carry, that kind of worry us so much, are things that we would have solved almost 30% of them.
You know, I think it should be a crime to deprive people of clean water. But when you see what's on Vanguard Sports, you see excitement as he and Cho hits Super Eagles camp. Teammates tease him on his new swag. Customizes face mask with senior man killers. I think the senior man thing
Senior man is his nickname. Is his nickname.
You know, seeing the goals he's been netting, hopefully will give us some during the qualifiers. But that's Vanguard Sports for you.
New Telegraph is also interested in nationhood. Lead story this morning: call for secession tears Yoruba apart. And I'm wondering what that means, really. But then the writers, it's not in our best interests. That's YCE, Yoruba Council of Elders, and Northern Elders to Buhari, Nigeria failing. That story is on page 3 of the paper this morning. But right under the nameplate, we've spoken quite a bit about that one already. Right under the nameplate, well, under the picture you see there, court orders extension as JAM makes NIN mandatory for candidates. 2021 UTME DE registration begins April 3. Also on page 3. What do you make of this? Just a few days ago, there was a judgment
of JAM and NIN.
No, of the extension of NIN for.
It's almost, unless we don't want to acknowledge the fact. The truth is that many people still haven't registered. It's still unfortunately for us, the moment we see that there's an extension, everybody relaxes again. And then when about a week or two to the expiration of the new deadline, they crowd the same place again. These are things we can do gradually, and if people don't sit back, we can do it. But I actually don't support the idea of using this NIN for it. Everything there are so many things I praise JAM for, which is bringing down the cost of JAM form. The prof, the JAB registrar, said he was going to bring it down. He's been reducing it, and despite reducing the cost of the form, he's still returning money to the federal government. That is a plus. But this idea of NIN is going to pose a lot of problem. I think they should still register these people with the regular ID cards or school ID and all that they have, knowing that the NIN process is somehow very frustrating.
Take a look at Daily Trust next. Senate moves to whittle down IGP's powers, decentralizes police structure. Look at the writers. Once operational budgetary controls vested in AIG's governors, lawmakers, monarchs, to be an advisory council. And then there are several provisions introduced in the new police bill. So, do you think this will give us the desired reorganization of the policing structure that...
I think there is need to tinker with the police setup, quite all right. But then let them not look at it as if it's an attack or focusing on the IGP and his powers and all that. The truth is that we are talking of state police, we are talking of all kinds of... The police needs a almost complete overhaul. And I heard the Senate trying to tinker with the police service commission and all that. There are so many people, there are certain powers that are vested in the IG that if you're not in the good books of the IG, you just might not make progress on your career. And this should be that, it should be that the IG can supervise you, not just determine whether you sometimes there was a time the Police Service Commission approved some appointment. The IG kicked that those promotions should come from him and all that. I think they need to straighten up all those things, and then we know where we are. But then basically, that is not where the problem is. I think what we need is the state police everybody has been calling for, and that is what they should be looking at, not weighing down somebody's power or giving somebody more power. We should be looking at state police because the country, like they said, is collapsing.
Okay, and then you also see that bandits kill over 20 vigilantes in Niger. So that is Daily Trust this morning.
Well, Niger News Directors next. No rift between Buhari-Tinubu presidency, as Tinubu donates 50 million naira for Katsina market fire victims. And, this talk has been on for a while, especially the lead story, certain rift between the president and the national leader of the APC. Do you see this quelling all that debate about whether or not they're on the same page?
When you see the presidency deliberately issuing a statement on it, there's no rift and all that. It doesn't change a thing. We are not concerned with what they say. Instead, we are looking at the body language. We are looking at whether Tinubu's interests are being properly taken care of by the government. They were saying something about APC membership registration and all that. Tinubu and co were kicking against it. Nobody took that protest into consideration. There are so many things. Yes, of course, Tinubu is not somebody known for. The idea was that he hadn't showed up he hasn't been visiting Aso Rock and all that. But they said he's not a member of the government. He has no portfolio in the government. He's just party leader, national leader, which they've even refused to gazette properly and maybe so we can say by law of the party, this is Tinubu's role. But then he's a kingmaker from the background. We get the impression he wants to run for the presidency in 2023. No, he hasn't told anybody, but moves are on. But then all is not well because you see a lot of his. I see the presidency deliberately empowering certain people in the Southwest who don't seem to be on the same page with Tinubu and all that. So all those little things are the meanings people read into this. But I think they will sort it out with time. They will sort it out. That was how they did before the 2015 election, and suddenly president was going and 2019 and I invited Ashwaju to accompany him, I think, to Côte d'Ivoire. And by the time they came, they had tidied up something. All we saw was that they had kicked out Oyego and brought Oshomole. And now when they kicked out, so it's like there are moves that are happening there that we say this might not go well with Tinubu. You remove his persons, the FIR's guy and stuff like that, and then we had talk of calling up his file again and all that. But Tinubu is a fighter. He will pull through.
Question is, perception and reality, same page or different poles? Well, the Guardian newspaper is next. And slow vaccine rollout raises fears of COVID-19 third wave. That's the lead of the paper this morning. Look at the writers. East Africa announces 98% fresh infections. And there's a quote, "We don't have enough vaccines to stop imminent third wave." And the virus gains ability to transmit, virus gains ability to transmit more efficiently, says Agwale. But the interest of the lead is actually something quite interesting. Slow rollout is swelling fears of the third wave. But of course, the president already said we have what it takes to take it all round. In a few seconds, what do you make of this?
My fear in all this is we are rolling out the vaccine, but we've kind of abandoned this idea of having how do I say, all the protocols we have been respecting before. You now see more and more people, because there is vaccine, more and more people not wearing face masks again, all those little things we do. Parties have started. No, even though there are there's still this distrust or mistrust, I say, suspicion about what the vaccine will do. I, as a person, when they wrote out and they said we should register online, after I finished registering and they said, sent me a message that they said, okay, that they have accepted my registration, that a message will be sent to me shortly, so I can know where to, what number they will give me. I checked, my number was 4,000 something. But as I sit down here now, almost 2 weeks after, that message has not come.
Maybe it's because it's just...
And I went to the place I'm supposed to take the vaccine yesterday. There was even, it was such a mess. And I just turned around and said, maybe I will look for another place and go.
Well, beside the picture you see on the front page, how Nigeria wastes unjustified wealth on UK education. CBN admits $960 million overseas funding of education and personal travels. Nigerians pay 20.25 billion tuitions yearly to UK schools, says a report. Make education system attractive to curb trend, scholars advise. Mr. Nwosu, you have only 30 seconds to comment on this.
Let us make our education universities work. Before he came to power, the president said something about medical tourism. Why should I go abroad to get treatment? What he told them at this Chatham House, why should I go abroad to get treatment? Why should my children go abroad to school when the schools can be fixed here? Up to now, they have not been fixed. Everybody is going. Even if you take, until we ask all our public officers, at least the political office holders, to keep their children in Nigeria for education, this will never reduce, because we see people who don't even earn up to 6 million in a year. They will send their children abroad to school where they'll be paying 10 million on one student. And then that is where the corruption begins, because you have to raise the money from the system to pay school fees abroad.
Let's look at leadership, insecurity. And it says, no need to worry. We'll have 2023 elections. That's ascribed to INEC. And then they say military will do what they have to do. So, well, did we expect anything from INEC?
We are thinking of, that's why we and our politicians are not on the same page. No matter what they do, even look at when we were saying COVID is spreading, everybody was observing protocols. The politicians were still having their rallies, holding their elections. So, irrespective of what you do, everything they do, like they say, politicians, think of the next election. That's all they're after. All these other ones, downturn in the economy, insecurity, all they want is let us have an election and then either win or rig ourselves to power. If indeed the country keeps going the way it's going, we just might not have a country by 2023.
Oh, boy. Well, that's leadership this morning.
We'll also quickly take a look at Blueprint. Leads with FG earmarks 1 trillion naira for cottage industries in 774 local governments. You see private sector to invest 19 trillion naira over 10 years. That's the Blueprint newspaper. And you see Nalge rejects bill seeking to delist local councils as third tier of government. How is that even a thing? But hey, it's democracy, right? You need to give everyone a voice. And just one more, $1.5 billion for Port Harcourt Refinery. Reps order probe of repair funds.
That even makes, how that is even a thing, to delist the third tier of government. Please. The Daily Times newspaper this morning. Come on.
Is it the 1.5 billion that is...
This is displaced Africa.
There's enough to get anybody angry, really. The justification for the 1.5 billion for Port Harcourt Refinery, and they have gone on and on. All the four, this was a government that promised us that they will give us one refinery every year for the next 4 years, and we are here. We can't even repair the ones we had.
Mr. Nwosu, what if government decides to do it all in 1 year? You don't even know what's going on. Please. The Daily Times newspaper this morning, FG opens bids for 12 federal highways. See? 12 federal highways. The story is on page 2. And refinery reps to investigate and audit $1.5 billion for FG,
Is
for
that
PH
highway a game
refinery.
changer now?
Rehabilitation, previous maintenance.
It's called the HDMI.
So do you think that's going to be a game changer now? This highway bid?
Anything that is, if the bill is going to talk about build, toll, and transfer, it's going to go a long way. Yes, people will kick, but that's the only way we can fix, because obviously government once they manage to do that contract, or award that contract, and the road is done once, there's no maintenance again. If we can get a bill that will make it compulsory for them to build and toll and all that, I think we might have better roads. So it's the way it's done all over the world. It's just that we need a little more enlightenment on it, and then so people don't just think that it's government trying to extort. I'm sure you won't mind driving. I was coming here, I entered into a pothole. I almost lost that tire.
Whoa.
So I mean, if the road is tolled and I can drive easily, I would
Whatever
gladly
makes
do
it
that.
work. As long as, just as you said, if it works and we think differently and gives results, no problem. Well, thank you very much indeed for coming on. Steve Nwosu is the publisher and editor-in-chief of the Nigerian Express.
Thank you, John. See you.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. That is where we start off today. We've got Mr. Sunny Friday joining us this morning. He's a representative of the parents, some of which you saw in that report. He's also a member of staff of that school. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today on the program. Well, all right, so okay, well, hoping this works out well today. But we'll give it a shot. Well, at the moment, today, the notice, the ultimatum which the parents gave to the government has elapsed. So the right thing to do now. Have the parents gotten any communication from the government? What is the latest situation now? Okay, well, you're not, it's coming in broken, but just give us a moment. We'll try and adjust that and get you on the line. Yes, we can see you, but just we need to hear you as well. Well, gentlemen, you know that that deadline elapsed. So at the time that we had this conversation, they were talking about the fact that they hadn't gotten any communication. And the government representative on the program at the time did also say, well, they're doing what they can to ensure that things work out. No government likes to see things just be that way. They like to govern and ensure that things turn out well. So the question now is, what steps are they taking to ensure that at least it comes across as though things are being done right?
You know, seeing the parents in that report wailing, I mean, you can understand. Maybe not understand, because not everyone has been in their shoes, but at least you can have a sense of what they're going through right now. It's been 14 days. What, exactly 2 weeks ago that the students were kidnapped. 39 of them, most of them female students. 23 of them are female. The rest are males. And, you know, seeing that video that was released just days after they were abducted just gives you a picture of what they're going through right now. It is horrendous. It is heart-wrenching. And, you know, nobody wants to go through this. Nobody wants their children to go through this. But this is where we find ourselves. So a lot of questions arise. I mean, you've listened to the parents decrying what they call, you know, silence from the government, the federal and state government. And they expected that at least there will have been some communication. In fact, the term they used was the government was not keeping them in the loop. So seeing that video, now this was earlier on during the abduction. So you imagine what is going on right now. I hate to imagine it, but I think this just goes to show that we need to do something fast. We've seen this in Kankara, we've seen this in Kagara, you know, we've seen this in other parts of the country, and now this, I mean, tertiary institution student It's heart-wrenching.
You know, the more heart-wrenching thing, possibly even unbelievable thing, look at the way they're dressed. That's the way they were pulled from their schools. Literally naked. And one is wondering, how is that even possible in the first place? From the reports, of course, what the representative of government, the Kaduna State government said, you know, that that school was supposedly well protected, you know, has better security features than most, you know, in the area. And according to him, the least expected that the School of Forestry Mechanization in Kaduna State would be attacked. Well, that has happened. I guess, okay, perhaps one wonders, you know, what new vista this opens. But then there is an angle of this whole conversation, guys, that we may not have paid enough attention to. When you look at the picture of those mothers,
Yeah.
some of them will just sit down and just begin to sob like something renewed happens. The traumatic impact both on the children and on the parents, the impact of it, especially on the students, won't be gone in 10 years. And I don't know, you know, each time we hear stories of, you know, students being brought back, we ask the question, are there any trauma caregivers to, you know, debrief them, so to speak, and all of that? We don't hear much about that, you know. And we all know that, I mean, there is a lot of questions about what attention government is given to some of these things. Now, let's also decrypt government. There are agencies of government that have primary responsibilities in these departments. We can't always expect that the head of any government would always be the one to do it. There are systems in place, or rather, there are supposed to be systems in place to take care of these things without needing approval, or with just do your job. I think that's the simple thing that we all expect.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, speaking about the kind of support they get, just, I mean, speaks to the faith, the hope you have that the students will be rescued. Because, I mean, there's no given support, no given any psychosocial help if the students are not rescued. Don't forget, I mean, that video, they were asking for 500 million naira ransom. And, you know, the government of Kaduna State, I mean, you listen to the governor, if you caught that report saying that, well, there's no grant and amnesty. There's no form of, you know, treating this with kid gloves.
No negotiation.
No negotiation. So you wonder how that is going to go. And we would like to know what the parents think about that as well, because, I mean, they are the ones that have their children in captivity, and hearing that the government does not want to negotiate, I wonder how that hits them, and I wonder what is being done. It's a lot of questions, really.
Well, we'll be back, and then just to go ahead and sort this out and get Mr. Sunny Friday back as soon as we can. So just give us a moment. We will be back. Welcome back. Let's get across to Mr. Sunny Friday. Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay, so we did ask you, the deadline, the ultimatum has elapsed. What is the recent situation now concerning the kidnap of the students?
Actually, the deadline expired midnight yesterday, and till now we have not heard anything from the government of the state. We have not heard anything from the institute itself. And the parents were not happy that government kept mute over the situation. All we kept getting is that the government are working on the matter. But we as parents, we demand to know on what parameter are they working? Are they working based on the security tips or reports? We want to know whether they have started communicating with the bandits. We want to know whether they have strike a deal with the bandits. We also demand that we as parents supposed to be part of the whatever negotiation that is going on. As it is now, we have not heard anything. Government is not telling us anything. And even the management of the institution are also keeping mute over the situation. And by this, the parents, we felt that there is need for us to come out again and let the international community here see our plight and see how they can press on the government to do something. Because we, as a parents, we are losing our person. We don't know whether our children are still alive or they are no more. Let the government come out and tell us something. As it is, we plan that we are coming out today, and we have intention of going to the government house.
When you say you want to be part of the negotiation, in what way?
Actually, if we know that government is doing something, we would have been agitating for that. But for government not to come out with any tangible results or informing us what they are doing, then it makes us to doubt. That makes us now to agitate that it's like government is doing nothing. And if actually they are doing something, let it be that we, a representative of the parents, be there, so that we will be sure that something is actually going on.
Okay.
We are used to this kind of tricks where government will be telling you that they are working on something, whereas they are doing nothing. And we are not convinced.
Were your children involved in that kidnap? And then do you have any information from any parents if any of those kidnappers has contacted anybody whatsoever?
Actually, my two daughters were involved, and since they were adopted till now, I've not received any information. They have not called me, and none of the parents has even said that the kidnapper have gotten to them. So, and that is one of our agitation, that if government who has a link to the bandit cannot help us out, they should give us a link so that we as parents can negotiate for the release of our children. Though the money, we may not have money, but we still believe that there are good people, there are good Nigerians that can hear our cries when we cry out. We know there are people, when the bandits say that they have no problem with the parents, it's the government they are dealing with. Even if you have intention of helping out, you won't do anything because you'll be expecting government to do the needful. But when the parents cry out that government is no longer doing anything for us, we need help from Nigerians as to how we will be able to meet up the mind ransom from the bandits. I think there are still good people, good Nigerians that can come out to assist to get us, our children, from the hands of the bandits.
Hearing that two daughters of yours are part of those students kidnapped, honestly, it's heart-wrenching, and I really pray for strength for you at this time. But when you hear the state governor saying that there will not be any negotiation with the bandits, and on the other hand, it seems the bandits are asking for 500 million naira ransom, where do you stand on that? Do you agree with the state government that no negotiation should be done and consequently maybe no ransom should be paid, or you think that there are other ways around this?
Okay, one of the things I will want the state government to also know, that it is the same state government who some time ago told the entire Kaduna state that if it cost him paying bandits to stop killing the citizens of Kaduna state, he will pay them. But that statement was about a year or two ago. Now, the same government came out, even before the adoption of our students in Federal College of Forestry, came out that it is wrong to negotiate with bandits and that he is not going to negotiate. After that statement, this incident happened. And the government, it is based on that statement now that the government is standing that they will not negotiate. But he made a statement before that he can do everything as far as the bandits can stop killing. So we want him to do something. This has happened. This has happened. You are not negotiating, and there is no machinery put in place for the release of these people. But one of the fear we have is that if the government felt that they can use force to bring out these children, it will be a disastrous move because these bandits are well equipped. They may decide to eliminate the children if they discover that government is trying to use aggressive force on them. Because our children, they are like using them as a shield for themselves as of today. So the best way we could want government to go about it is to first of all negotiate. Even if they want to put any other security measure on ground, it should be after this. It should be after this. Parents are crying. Why is it that it's in our time that we are going through all this? And if the state government felt that, no, I cannot. Now, this school we are talking about is a federal government establishment. Let the federal government do something for our children to be reunited back to us. Let the federal government do something. We are pleading. But the state government should also know that the school is within Kaduna State.
Okay.
The staff of Kaduna State are paying. The staff of the school are paying their tax to Kaduna State. So, in fact, it's unfortunate that I have to be the only staff that is affected in this matter.
Very, very touching, most certainly. But you said earlier that there is a plan to go to Government House. Well, perhaps the general message would be bring back our children. But then, what are your expectations, given that the state government already said, we're not negotiating? Now, in the conversations that you hope to have with the government when you indeed visit, what are your expectations?
Actually, we are going there with an appeal. I know that we have a governor who also have a listening ear. We want to go there with an appeal. I know that he can still revise his statement. It is wrong for anybody to take another person's life. As it is now, the parents are beginning to have a feel that maybe their children are no longer alive. The government is just trying to contain what will come out of it. But if the government knows that these children are still within the hand of the bandit, let him please look back and please revise some of these statements he made and do it not for us, but for the sake of the entire Nigerian. The education is a right of our children, and we as parents, we are doing everything possible to give our children education. The only crime that these children committed is for them to seek education, good education for themselves. It's not as if they hurt anybody. It's unfortunate that we heard that the bandit is saying that they don't have issue with parents, they are only dealing with government. But it's the children of the masses that are in their captives now. So they should look.
As we wind down, if you could just do this in less than 30 seconds, are you up to, because, you know, the government said that they rescued some of those students. Perhaps that could give hope. Does that in any way encourage parents that, who knows, if they're able to rescue some of them, you just might have the same rescue happen soon?
The issue of rescue is not there at all. Because when the bandits came to the school, those that were lighted ran out. Some of them ran for hiding. And at the time the military came in, the bandits have gone with their victim already. Those that were in their hiding were the ones that came out later, and the military took them to their barracks. So I would prefer the military use word evacuating the remaining students on ground. You understand? Instead of saying the rescue. When we heard that government is saying that they rescued 180, we were worried because it's not done anywhere. It's not done anywhere. We should tell Nigeria the truth. It is now we need a rescue, and government has to do something about it.
All right, Mr. Sunny Friday, we do thank you at least for at least someone in strength and courage to speak to us. We do hope that all the parents, they have the strength to stay through. It's a challenge for the state government, and They just have to address it. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome to our Abuja studios, and yes, I'm Malpe Ogun Yusuf. We're going to be looking at state of the polity this morning. That's the segment that we have, and of course, you've seen our guest, Mr. Sonny Moniedafe, is a stakeholder in the APC and an aspirant for the position of national chairman of the All Progressives Congress. Well, I don't think that, there's so much to be said in terms, by way of introduction. If you have been following the program, a cursory look through the papers lets you know where we are in our state, the state of our polity today. But just in case you missed the papers, let's quickly look at this. Senate moves to whittle down IGP's powers, decentralized police structure. You know why that conversation has been ongoing. Call for secession tears Yoruba apart. That is also on the front pages. Nigeria falling apart. NEF, Afenifere, MBF, Pandef tells federal government. And then you also see this one, no need to worry about 2023. So you can see that there is an existential problem right ahead. And it's all exacerbated by the security situation. The segment preceding this one talked about the kidnapped children who were taken away from a school of forestry somewhere in Kaduna State. So, a lot to worry about. A Nigerian today is wondering, what is the future of this country? I don't know if you've had time to ponder it. You are a member of the current ruling party.
Yeah.
When you think about the future of this country, vis-a-vis what, the responsibility that your party, your government has, what will you tell the average Nigerian is there to hope for?
I just tell them to be patient. By the way, good morning.
Good morning.
Nigerians, good to see you again after a long while. I will tell Nigerians to be patient because all problems are meant to be overcome. I will tell Nigerians to remove their attention from security matters. The people in charge of security know what they are doing. They are doing it. They don't have to divulge any information to you. By the way, my heart goes out to the families of the young women that were kidnapped in Kaduna State. I pray that they are released. Having said that, I want to appeal to them to please just stay calm. I was telling you off camera about the incidents I had with my colleagues in University of Maiduguri who were kidnapped 2017, I think, thereabouts. And November 2017, University of Maiduguri had a reunion dinner just to remind the Nigerian people about those people. And then their families to assure them that we have not forgotten about them. I got to hear many things. Security forces, they are working. They don't have to divulge anything they are doing to you.
So you say that, the families they should keep calm. I'm sure that they kept calm. They kept calm for a while. It was when they didn't hear anything. It didn't seem like there was any movement on the part of security agencies and government, at least to their knowledge.
Exactly. That's the key point.
That's when they now decided, look, what is going on? They came out with placards and set an ultimatum, and they're still here saying, we still haven't heard anything despite our cry.
They should carry on with their placards, but I assure them that the security forces are working. Using that example again, it was when we got involved, we went to Maiduguri, saw the families of those who were still under the kidnappers. Assured the parents that prayerfully they'll be released. It was after that I started hearing stories about what was happening. They were talking, they were working, things are being done.
We're now in a state of prayers.
Talking does not solve anything. Everything we say, everything you are saying, as you speak on TV now, they are watching as well. So anything you say offhand, they can divulge, they can tell their colleagues that are the kidnappers.
Let me bring it back to, your earlier statement about Nigerians should take their mind away from security. Security is something that we all need to carry out our daily businesses. If you now hear that the roads are unsafe and a lot of people prefer to travel by air, and there are big worries around that area, it's not something that you can avoid. If your children are in school, in a boarding school, and you don't know which school will be up next for the next bandit attack, can Nigerians really say that they're going to go about their business? Let's not forget that even though in some instances it has ended well, in some other instances it hasn't. Let's give an instance. Leah Sharibu is just reported to have given birth to her second baby in captivity. So in some instances it has ended well, thankfully. But in some other instances it has been very sad, very worrying. Can the average Nigerian say, "Oh, I'm taking my mind away from security"?
Don't get me wrong. When I said what I said, if it happens that your family member is kidnapped, you don't solve it by going to talk and insisting on being told what is happening. It's unfortunate that things are happening like this. The kidnapping industry has become a very viable industry for many people. You have people who just wake up sleep paupers, wake up multimillionaires. They kidnap and demand ransom. If your family is kidnapped, unfortunately, it's not a solution for you to start insisting on being told what is happening. The security forces are working. I assure you, because of that experience I had. Moreover, we have a president who is a former general. He has people who are there. They don't have to tell us what is happening. They are working. Leah Sharibu, may God make her safe where she is and get her released. But the Karakara students, over 300, eventually released. Those in Niger State, eventually released. So some will be released, some will not for some time. The problem now is when you insist on being told what is happening, they will not tell you. It won't be right asking for it, because if they tell you, they are divulging secrets that will also hamper your own child. So if it happens, I pray that it doesn't happen to people. If it happens, just be prayerful and wait, because I assure you that the government is working. I'm not in security forces. I am not. But I know that it's just common sense. And then secondly, my experience with the geological department workers of the University of Maiduguri, eventually they were released. We pray they are released without any harm. It's not easy, but if it happens, the solution is not to go and be making noise and trying to ask the government to tell you what they are doing. They will not tell you. So I ask for patience from the families.
My colleagues in Lagos have another guest on standby. Gentlemen.
Oh, yes, indeed. Mr. Segun Shomi joins us now. He's a former spokesperson of the PDP campaign council. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. What do you think of what's going on?
Which of them? What he just said?
Yes.
I think, I don't know why people think that when you come on national television, you can speak to grieving parents in such a lackadaisical, forget about it, don't. What kind of talk is this? If you are not giving information to the public, you have to talk to the parents. You have to manage their traumas. They have to understand to some reasonable extent, not your operational procedures of how you are going to go and bust them. You've not busted anybody. So I really don't get what is there to respond to there. I'll just go straight to say this. If you've been in this country maybe 20 years, you are not too young, you have never seen our country this way. Insecurity on one part. Have you ever seen this country this divided? For some reason, you're just hearing noise of, secession, we want to go, everybody's doing whatever the hell they like, say whatever they want to say, and those with the responsibility to say, enough. You're not going to be allowed to implode this country. You're not going to be allowed to destabilize this country, are on holiday, receiving guests, shaking hands with people that are jumping from pillar to pole, claiming that they are running parties. And you take a look at poverty, and you say, okay, maybe they're not getting it with insecurity. Okay, maybe they're not getting it with national cohesion. What are they doing with the large number of unemployed in the country? The number is ballooning. You cannot see a synergy of thought between policy and government action to reduce that. Leave that. Okay, so maybe they don't know what they're going to do with unemployment. Then you go to the so-called anti-corruption. You ask yourself, where are the things that can tell you that the country is running an anti-corruption battle that has produced some fear in the system? You can't find anything other than, take them in, bring them out, spend time. Look, we have completely forgotten about everything President Buhari and his friends promised us when they were coming. Nigerians have forgotten that. We asked them to do 3 things because they are incapable of doing others. They should forget about running the economy. They don't know how to do that. They should leave that. Number 1, they should reform the Electoral Act so that the Nigerians who have to take a decision to vote them out can at least be assured that their votes will count. Number 1. Number 2, they should manage the rhetorics of all this ethnic militia, this group, that group, from wherever they may be coming from, be them in any of the sections of the country, to tell them in very firm and clear language, enough is enough. Number 3, and probably the fact, they should just pack their bags and go. If you cannot do a job, if you do not have the capability to manage a job, if you are struggling on the job, if you are incapable of explaining to Nigerians what you are doing, if you don't have the empathy to reach out to parents who are looking for their kids who are kidnapped, if your spokespeople and your supporters are going to come on television and annoy us even more, it is more honorable to say, herein I have tried, thank you very much, I'm packing my load and I'm going.
Wondering, Mr. Shomi, that's if we're ever going to see that kind of day in Nigeria. But let me ask you, you talked about the huge division, and a number of people have said over and over again, that is something that can only be attributed to the activities of politicians across party lines. Where is all of that division coming from?
Okay, thank you. I have read and heard some suggestions that unknowingly suggests or tries to impugn or insinuate that probably opposition or some elements are the ones wrong. That's not true. The country got divided so badly because of the nepotistic attitude that they started with. It got so bad because those who are speaking this divisive language within the country have been left to just do it with reckless abandon. For more than 3 years, in spite of me being in opposition, I have been very nervous as to how everybody just comes to national space and talks as if the country is not controllable. And I get extremely depressed. Why? Because I expect, in the minimum, 2 people that I expect them that they know what to do. The first is the president himself. I expect him to know what to do. The second is the National Security Advisor, Mongunu. Sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'll ask myself, is this not Mongunu? Is it the same Mongunu, the Mongunu that will be sitting as the National Security Advisor of this country? Intelligence will be at the lowest ebb. People are just doing whatever they like, however they like, underneath the pretense that we're running democracy. If we do not have a country, if the country implodes on all our heads, where the hell are we going to go? And when you see them come to public space, you say, give them patience, do. You won't even see anything to suggest to you that they have put themselves in the shoes of the people they're talking to. And on behalf of the president, with due respect, nobody would have taken you 30 years from retirement to come and lead this country if you are not going to lead from the front. Whereas I do not expect you to sidestep all democratic institutions, but that does not mean that things can't still happen within the existing structure that you have on your hand. And therefore, if one is beginning to get the impression that the president is truly not interested, probably too tired, or he has been, he has given up on even his own aides, why would you ask that the story of Nigeria will be kidnapping today, ransom tomorrow. Kidnapping today, ransom tomorrow. Kidnapping today, ransom tomorrow. What are we doing about the underpinnings? We talk to you about unemployment, you say it's not a big deal. How can it not be a big deal? What is foiling it? We talk to you about nepotism. You say it's not a big deal. What is foiling the hatred of the tribes? How can anybody be president of this Nigeria, for God's sake, and allow people to be using ethnic divisions and rhetorics to undermine the country? One organization will speak from the southwest. Instead of them to shut them up immediately, one organization will be replying them in the north. How did we become a country where ethnic militias are the ones that are running this country for us?
Well, Mr. Shomi, before we toss this to Abuja, let me just ask you pointedly now. You said you don't believe this government is capable of handling the economy, but you asked for three things. You asked for them to work on the Electoral Act and quell these, voices of secession. Are you saying you are at least trusting this government to be capable to handle that?
No. We will not pay them salaries. Give them all the trappings of government so that they can just slip through the whole road. My saying we no longer have any expectation on the economy is because when a child is incapable of passing mathematics, just forget about it, teach him English. When I say they should forget about creating jobs, it is because they've been struggling at it. They like to bandy figures. They sit down in their rooms and concoct all sort of contraption and be telling you, oh, they have done this in agriculture. What kind of talk is this? We are supposed to feel it on the streets. There is no way the entire north of Nigeria, the middle belt of Nigeria, the southwest, the south, the southeast, everybody in the country will be under this kind of stress if they were doing the right thing. So I've taken the difficult ones from them. I've left them with the ones that if they don't solve, we won't even have a country. Can you imagine the effrontery with which their party is saying they will be in charge of Nigeria for 1 million years? What have they done to Nigerians that can make Nigerians love them? Are they trying to say that the people in these countries are Neanderthals who will not even know when their own interest has not been served? How much have they been living? What have they been spending? How have they been coping? The few people who even have a little salary, they are under a lot of pressure because nothing else is working. So I removed those ones from their list because it's too late. They have barely 2 years to go. They can't even run their own party. They can't keep to their own rules. So how would you expect such people to organize the country? I've given them the 3 most critical ones because I know if they don't improve the Electoral Act, we might probably get to 2023 and this bunch of crooks will come again and tell me that, oh, they got 10 million votes from a village that people don't live in. I've told them to solve the problem of this crisis in the country, everybody just talking anyhow. How can a nation allow itself to be hijacked by miscreants claiming that they are running for their tribe? Is this country no longer under leadership?
Let's get him to let's see how he responds to this one. Markwe?
Chamberlain, I must express my sadness at the way you treated me. You didn't tell me I'm going to have somebody on the other side and that the topic was going to be this diverse. You didn't tell me that. So I'm just taken by ambush by what is happening. Let me reply.
That is not correct. That is not correct. You were informed rightly of the subject matter based on the politics. So let's put that in proper perspective. That is not correct. And I stand to say that. Go ahead.
Pardon?
Go ahead. We did inform you of what you were going to discuss. And if you have watched, you know, and I did tell you.
Only security, Chamberlain. Anyway.
No, that is not correct, Mr. Monidafe.
Anyway.
I challenge that point.
What's happening right now reminds me of what happened in that film Scarface. When Cuba, under Fidel Castro, was put under pressure by America to release political prisoners, Fidel Castro released all kinds of people into America. And when they were in the prison in Florida, I remember the immigration officer saying that Cuba is shitting all over them. The PDP has done the same thing to this country. For 16 years that they were in power, they got over $1 trillion from just crude sale alone. They did not start and finish one single project, not a single one. So all what we have today is as a result of what the clueless PDP government left for this country. That Shegun will be saying that kind of thing amazes me. He's saying that President Buhari should move against whoever is doing this. The same Shegun will threaten to report the president to the ICC, to who have you, if he moves violently, strongly against these people. What is the PDP trying to get us into? You're talking about Electoral Act. The president is somebody that listens to people. He's going to make it, he's going to sign it into law. Now, facts that emerged later showed that apparently the PDP had intentions of manipulating the system, which is why they were asking for Electoral Act to be fixed immediately. Don't forget in 2015 or so, when APC office was raided in Okwebi, they accused the APC of cloning cards. Now the same PDP refused to allow for card readers to be used. It's unfortunate that Shegun is talking like this, but on security, I will not say anything. I don't speak for the party. I was called to come and appear here in my own capacity as somebody who is seeking to be the chairman of the party come National Convention in June. I don't speak for the party. I made my personal opinion. If something happens to anybody,
well, Mr. Monidafe,
just calm down and wait for the government to get things done.
Well, Mr. Monidafe, if I can just quickly put a question, just a moment. You rightly put it when you said that you are aspiring to be leader of your party at the national level, national chairman of your party. Expectedly, you should be able to take on any issue as far as the government of the day is concerned. So while all the things that all the caveat that you put ahead is something to go by, you may also want to recognize that the responsibility you are aspiring to would demand that you be able to take on any issue whatsoever and consequently even be able to speak for governments. These things are part of the policies of the government of the APC which you are aspiring to lead. So consequently, it is expected that you should be able to take on these issues. So, but the issues that Mr. Shoumi has raised, well, sentimental you may want to put it, but the issues are there. The facts are clear about the things that he has said, about the economy, about the security, about even the anti-corruption indexes all over the place. So what's your take on all of that?
I insist, and I will make that a policy. I will never speak on security matters. Never. I will not allow it because I don't have the facts. On economy, on corruption or whatever, I will answer. But I will never encourage anybody to speak on security. Now, talking about the economy, shortly after Buhari came to power in 2015, we had these Niger Delta bombers. For whatever the reason, they came and started bombing. And that led to the collapse of the economy. We went into recession. In the fastest time, we came out of recession. In the fastest time, we came out of recession under President Buhari. So the price of crude dropped to almost $20 per barrel from the $110 per barrel that we had for close to 7 years under the PDP, which we have nothing to show for. To come and now expect magic overnight, it's amazing. Now, talking about this kidnapping matter.
The government promised magic, Mr. Monidafe. The government promised that the dollar would and the naira would come very, very close to par within the shortest possible time. But even just this morning, the papers are reflecting that the reason, according to the Minister of Information and Culture, that the reason for the poor ranking of Nigeria on the anti-corruption index is the opaqueness of business, which is, of course, a function of the policies of the government of the APC.
Now, the issue of coming at par, I remember what the late, is it late now, Tony Momo said about making the dollar equivalent to the naira. I think so. But that is not something that I want to delve into right now. The point of fact is that we don't operate in isolation as a nation. We are still importing to some extent. So if anything happens overseas, it affects the Nigerian economy. The most important thing is that we have come out of recession twice now. About being opaque, I don't know about that. If anybody has the facts, let him bring it out. But right now, what I'm appealing to Nigerians on is that we should please be very careful. We have no country except Nigeria. We have no country. We have to be very careful. We have to trust this government. And I've always said it. If you believe that this government is not working, that's your own right to believe. I know that the PDP left over 300 uncompleted projects. I was on a program yesterday with the spokesman of the PDP, Kola Ologbodiyan. He shamelessly told me that they started projects all over the country without completing one single one. Now, show me, please tell me one project you started.
Okay,
16 years of PDP,
let's bring him in.
Over $1 trillion, one that you started and finished in this country.
All right, Mr. Showme, in
No.
2 minutes, because we'll go to break and then be back on this. How do you respond to that?
I think when Nigerians listen to him and listen to me, they will know who loves this country out of the both of us. I take it that, first, I love the country absolutely. The political parties are vehicles. I'm able to look at them in the eyes and say, okay, they're doing some things, but if I see any, I'm able to look at my party and say, no, some of these things you're doing, I don't accept, if I see them. But where we are now in the country, we're at such a critical stage where we must determine for ourselves how do we want to exit it. There are two easy ways to exit. No, one easy way to exit it via a democratic election where the Nigerians can decide whether they want to reinforce failure. And then we say, okay, the Electoral Act was very clean. They had a clear and clear election. Nigerians like to suffer, so they won. Or there's a clean Electoral Act. Nigerians choose, some other guys come in and take on the job one way. The second way, and why I'm a bit agitated, I'm wondering where this man lives, whether he lives on Mars, is that you just need to go deep into the country and feel the level of division, the rhetorics. People no longer respect their obas. People no longer respect their leaders. Nobody is above the kinds of talk. People can just wake up in the morning, issue sanctions to ethnic groups within the country, and he thinks these are not dangerous signs. But because I love the country more than him, that much I know, and the PDP loves Nigeria more than them, we are not trying to engage them on, oh, they were there for 17 years, they were there for 30 years. No. We're trying to tell them that there is a need for us to press the panic button to de-escalate the unacceptable rhetorics that comes from the tribes, comes from Marudas in the country, that comes from any ethnic jingoist, no matter who he is, to get our country to say, why? Because you need to have a country first before you can plan it.
Just give us a moment. We'll call back and take your concluding thoughts, both of you, in just a moment. Please join us again.
Well, Mr. Sonny Moniedafe is still with us in the studio, and we're just going to take his closing comments. The issues are many, and they're interrelated. You know, talk about the distrust, the suspicion, the divisions that we're seeing right now. They're all interrelated with the security challenges that are confronting us, and they are real. On a daily basis, Nigerians have to confront them. Is there any thinking in your party as to how to calm the average Nigerian who perhaps might be getting agitated at the situation?
I don't speak for the party, Maokwe. But let me tell you one thing.
Your thoughts,
personally, I'm doing. Personally, which is why I've declared to become the national chairman of the APC. Now, for those that don't know, I am Delta State by origin. My father left Warri through Burutu in 1950 for Jimeta Yola. I was born in Jimeta Yola, Adamawa State, 64 years ago. I've been in Abuja for 23 years now. I am a Nigerian. Imagine a Sonny Sylvester Moniedafe as national chairman of the APC. Many of the agitators will calm down because they will see that they have the hope to aspire for any position and they will get it. Simply by virtue of your name or what? My antecedent, Urobo man from Adamawa State. Just by that? It helps a lot of people. I've been getting calls from all over the place. I speak for millions of Nigerians whose parents were from different places, but they were born in different places, who are not recognized in this country. The South is talking about getting the presidency. What about people like myself that are across Nigeria, who went by train in the 50s, in the 40s, from the Southwest to Ilorin, to Kaduna, to Kano, to Gombe, to Maiduguri, those that went to mine in Jos, in the Plateau, were all over in millions. It will help a lot. Secondly, this kidnapping and co is because of the bad situation we have on ground. We have, for example, in the FCT, 167 junior secondary schools to 77 senior secondary schools. Recently, we got an additional 10 schools that have not really kicked off. But as at when we speak now, 167 junior secondary schools to 77 senior secondary schools. Every year, we have about 15,000 students that cannot enter SS1. I went to Adamawa State in 2018. I investigated. They have 1,200 junior secondary schools to 400 senior secondary schools. Close to 30,000 students that cannot enter SS1 every year, multiplied by 35 all over the place. This government is trying to create more crowd schools, vocational centers, name them, to absorb some of these students that cannot enter the normal secondary school to go and learn handwork. All these young boys are there in their millions with nothing to do. This is the carryover of what happened in the past. No focus. It will take time for us to do it, and I assure you that if God wills, I get there, such things will be top of the order of the day. Things are bad, we know, but I don't speak for the party. I cannot come and talk on security. I'm ever ready to talk about any other issues, not on security, for obvious reasons. But this APC is willing and is doing a lot. Having said that, Shegun show me that people are leaving PDP in droves to come to APC. Why are they coming?
I think it's a fine place to leave it. I already told you that they're closing comments. Let's quickly flip it now to Mr. Shegun Shoumi.
Well, let me start from the one you said that my people are living in doves to come and join them. The first question you will ask is if the Nigerians and those even jumping trust that the Electoral Act will give them a fair chance at a decent contest. I don't know any human being in this world who will jump from the frying pan into the fire. They are barely able to do their own ESCOs correctly. They barely have an NWC in place. They have run with caretaker. They don't even know that there's a constitutional lacuna that could make them to be completely off the ballot, which is that the Constitution of Nigeria imagines that a chief executive officer is a full-time job. He cannot be part-time governor, part-time chairman. But you see, the APC believes that the whole world is run by foolish people. God will help them.
Those people that moved to the APC, they're not political babies. I mean, the former governor of Ogun State, your former boss, who was at the forefront of trying to get the PDP presidential candidate into power, the former Speaker of the House of Representatives. These are people that, I'm sure you've worked with them, so you know they permutate well, they calculate well, they do their research. So you're saying that they just jumped from fry pan to fire knowingly?
Let me put it for you this way. The electoral map of Nigeria is made of about 200 million people, so we say. And we have an electoral map of close to 17 million. If as little as 15 million, including all the inflation, is what installs a president, it should tell you that there's something totally wrong. I do not expect us to go into the next circle with an idea that there's one big man somewhere that is going to rescue all Nigerians. Because we have seen clearly that they have a way of looking after themselves. When it is hot in the morning, they jump to where it is cold in the afternoon and all that. That's their business, that's their choice. People have freedom of association. The issue for determination, and what we're talking about here is that this particular presidency under this particular party has no intention to keep its word. How can they not even be talking about restructuring when it is obvious? How can they not fast-track police reform when clearly young people in this country shut down everything? Guess what? They have no intention to be in a hurry. They can wait until kingdom come, and if Nigerians are foolish enough not to know what is best for them, they can even rig us out. So, but I tell you, we are not going to pretend that things are working in this country. And I insist again, 3 things are more critical. To give them more is too heavy. They should give us a tidy electoral act so that we can know who will win, and the person that will win will know he won, and who lost will know he lost. They should help us to reduce the divisive narrative in the country so that everything does not blow up in our face. Because tribal conflicts, they usually appear as if they're not going to start until they arrive at your doorstep. And of course, the third one, like I said, if they do not have any solution to the first 2, they should just pack their bag and go home.
All right, that's a good place to let it go. Mr. Shegun Shoumi, former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, as well as Mr. Sonny Monidafe, APC stakeholder and aspirant for the position of the national chairman and former chairman of ACN in Abuja. They were both invited to discuss state of the policy. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on this morning. We're back in a moment. Don't go away.
Well, this conversation is one that I look forward to, and I hope it's one that you'll also enjoy. We have with us this morning former Minister of Health, Dr. Mohammed Ali Pate, who's now the Global Director, Health, Nutrition and Population with the World Bank Group. Doctor, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
When COVID-19 struck, this is a very personal question. Were you grateful to God that you were not the Minister of Health of Nigeria at that time? Just wondering.
I have to say, it was my sympathies to all those who were leading efforts all over the world in their respective countries at that moment. Knowing what we went through during previous outbreaks, the COVID-19 challenge was one that I believe every leader everywhere must have had a very challenging task on their hands.
Well, it was their challenge at that point, it would seem, not yours then. But then, I'm sure that at the position that you occupied, I mean, there definitely, or you currently occupy, there would have been thoughts as to how you could help leaders around the world, particularly those in Africa. And I don't know if your thoughts came home to Nigeria as to how you could be of help. Did you reach out in any way?
Yes, I think immediately we saw a health crisis rapidly engulfing the global economy overall, even though it started from the health sector. It's an unprecedented challenge. We saw it unfold from China to Europe, to North America, and to all over the world. So as the bank, we immediately went into action in March, and by early April, we had approved $6 billion package, which supported 110 countries all over the world to respond to the emergency crisis, have test kits, mobilize their frontline health workers, improve their health systems to be able to deal with it, and to mobilize in terms of the surveillance systems and their infrastructure. That provided help to many countries in Africa, and Nigeria was included in that. And by October, when vaccines began to be available, we went back to our boat and got $12 billion additional financing to enable countries acquire the vaccines, but also deliver those vaccines and strengthen their health systems, not only in the context of COVID, but also for other diseases that afflict their population. That is on the health front. But there is a wider social and economic impact of the pandemic, which is also still unfolding, which the bank stepped in and tried to help countries to deal with those consequences as well.
It is true that a lot of countries are still reeling from the aftershocks of COVID-19. And now there's a third wave in some countries. There's some countries that are still mooting whether or not they'll go on another round of lockdown. But thankfully, in Africa, we have been spared largely the consequences. Largely, I must say. It was not as bad as was envisaged. It's now a long journey from when COVID-19 broke out to now when the vaccines, have finally arrived in Africa. Did you have any doubts as to how it was going to be received, considering the misinformation that had gone on, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the source and all of that, and how, even in how developed countries, vaccine hesitancy, which we are beginning to see, and even the controversy again, given also that we're a highly religious people. Did you have fears as to how it was going to be received here, and what are the gaps between what you thought would happen and what is currently happening with vaccination?
At the foundation, to affect people's behaviors, they have to trust the information that they are getting, and the channels through which they get that information must be credible. So in our response, in the initial $6 billion that we put in, there was a component specifically for risk communication and community engagement, because we anticipated whether it's getting people to wear a mask, to do physical distancing, wash their hands, they have to believe in really what they're being told. So that is something that we've embedded in the context of our help to countries to respond to the pandemic. Now, in the context of Nigeria and many African countries, I think previous outbreaks have enabled the public health systems, particularly in this country, to actually have the muscle memory that when COVID hit, it was easier to organize them. To organize things like the Emergency Operations Center or the Presidential Task Force that exists for COVID-19 response on the back of experiences with other infectious diseases like polio. So those came to being, but also the mechanisms of engaging religious leaders, community leaders, traditional leaders in terms of channeling the right information would help. The issue of hesitancy is a global phenomenon, but it's also contextualized in terms of issues in particular geographies and how it's driven. In our own context, I do hope that our leaders will really continue to reinforce the message that the vaccines are safe, they are efficacious, and they will help protect, save lives, and also help reopen economy, our economy, but also hopefully globally, others will also do that.
Indeed, and that's what a lot of people are hoping will eventually happen. But we know that what we have right now in terms of vaccines, a tiny fraction of what is needed to achieve herd immunity. What are your hopes? Thankfully, some private sector entities are already stepping in. We heard in that report that MTN just sent, I think, 300,000 doses as well. The PTF says they're in receipt of that. What are your thoughts in terms of how Nigeria, maybe I should be more general about Africa, will be able to get the herd immunity which it needs to be able to say, yes, we have this virus under control, when you look at the fact that we're still very dependent, heavily dependent on getting vaccines from other parts of the world?
There are important lessons to be learned. I think we knew, even from March last year, we published a paper that basically called for a fair allocation mechanism for vaccines when they are developed, to develop those vaccines faster, to do them at scale, given the challenge ahead of us at that time. So ultimately, when the vaccines have became available, and what we're seeing right now is that there's a two-track world. The high-income countries are able to immunize their population. More than 500 million doses have been distributed. More than 100 million people have been fully immunized. But many of them, the vast majority of them, are in the high-income countries. Only about 30 million doses have been distributed among 52 lower-income countries. So you see a two-track world where some parts of the world might get to 80% of their population coverage, and other parts of the world might struggle by the end of the year to get to 20-30%. The issue is manufacturing of the vaccines. And at the moment, we're in the middle of a pandemic. This is something that I think we should take as a lesson and ensure it doesn't happen again, that we have the capabilities to manufacture these products in a distributed manner within the Africa region, within our countries, maybe starting from simpler parts, fill and finish, and then to establishing things that can produce the platform vaccines, the newer technologies. That's something that we can make up our mind to learn the lesson of this pandemic and ensure it doesn't happen again. And there are also other things that actually fit into the vaccine supplies. The needles and syringes, the glass vials, and other inputs that we can contribute. There's a whole value chain around vaccines that we could tap into. Not only vaccines, other biologicals, other pharmaceuticals. We cannot depend in this world of today that all our important life-saving interventions have to come from outside. I think it behooves national leaders to actually think about strategically their own interest and building the capabilities within their countries and invest to get there together with the private sector, while also reinforcing their core health systems capabilities to deliver those vaccines or commodities when they are available.
So what do you then say to people who are, because you talked about the whole value chain, and it would seem that so far so good, we've not really been able to contribute anything, much, let's say, if anything at all. What do you say to those who say that this should not be the priority for us? Given the fact that COVID-19 did not wreak as much, it wreaked its own havoc, and maybe we should not quantify it, but in terms of priorities of health, that COVID-19 should not really be a priority for us, considering the other diseases that ravage us and considering where our healthcare system is. The monies which we're spending, the humongous amounts of monies we're spending to procure the vaccines, could go into other areas that primarily affect us as a people. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, the pandemic is still unfolding. We have not seen the end of it yet. This is a virus that is continuing to change. We're seeing stories of mutants emerging. So the trajectory of this pandemic is far from being completed. You mentioned the first surge, the second surge, and some countries seeing the third surge, although not in the African continent at the moment. But we are yet to see the end of it all. So beyond COVID-19, what I'm speaking about is there are other vaccine-preventable diseases. We do need vaccines to prevent our children from getting measles, from getting pneumonia, but all of those vaccines, we import them. We need to invest in our health systems at the core, the frontline health systems, the health workers, the testing capability, the diagnostic abilities that need to be embedded in our health systems. If I ask you today, for instance, for many of the viruses that are circulating in Nigeria, do we know the character of the viruses or what kinds of mutants are in those? I'm sure NCDC is doing an excellent work. Dr. Chikwe Ihewezu is one of the best experts in this field. But there is a limit in terms of the capability that we have to even understand the viruses that are circulating in our population. So we need to learn the lesson and not just go through cycles of panic and neglect after the pandemic is over. This is just one infectious disease in a series of infectious diseases that have emerged, and there will be more likely. In the last 25 years alone, there have been several viruses that have emerged, from Nipah in the late 90s, to SARS, the first coronavirus in 2003, to MERS, to Ebola, and then now to COVID-19. So investing in health system is core to our economic security and also to our national security. This virus is there, and it may fritter out over time, or it could get a bit more widely distributed, as we've seen from the emerging variants.
The question is about priority. If you had to pick, where would you say, I mean, because funds are limited, they're scarce, where should we be investing more?
I think it's important to have the right balance in terms of strengthening the primary healthcare system, the frontline health workers, and also having those commodities that are necessary and apply them to stop the transmission of this virus. In addition to vaccines, the physical distancing, the masking, hand washing, the behavioral thing, the core public health interventions also have to continue, because it will take a while before we get to the point where we have immunized all the population that we need to. We can do faster, but I think we need to have a full complement of services that we promote to deal with the COVID pandemic, but also the secondary crisis. We focus on COVID-19, but there is also a secondary crisis that COVID-19 has unleashed. Interruptions in reproductive, maternal, newborn, and child health services, which itself is very important. Immunization against other childhood preventable diseases. The governments have to strike the balance within the constraints of the fiscal resources that is available to them.
Indeed. Well, I think the forthcoming days will let us know whether government is striking that balance or whether or not it's tilting towards one end. But we have to thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us this morning. We could go on and on with this conversation. Our time is limited. Dr. Mohammed Ali Pate is currently the Global Director, Health, Nutrition and Population with the World Bank Group. Is a former Minister of Health of Nigeria. It was a real pleasure having you here on
Thank you very much.
We've seen that you sent some of your comments and messages to us this morning. Let's see if we can run through a few of them. Saul Adeleke says, they're talking about PDP versus APC. Always wondered the difference between PDP and APC. A discussion today seems to show the minute difference. While PDP have realized they messed up and are trying to win back the citizenry, APC doesn't seem to realize how much they failed and disappointed us.
Okay, let's take a look at the second one. Adams, I believe that's right. He says, on the state of the polity, sincerely, I thought we had passed this stage of blame game or party, but rather address the clear failure of governance being the bane of what it is faced today in this country. Quite sad, he says.
Well, this next tweet is from Corrupt Concern.
Corruption.
Says, corruption concern and corrupt concern. It's a very short one. If APC is not good, PDP is not an alternative. An exclamation mark.
Yeah, Francis says about the abduction. For students to be abducted perhaps successfully from an institution near a military academy shows that Nigeria's security personnel are overstretched, underfunded, under-equipped, and lack intelligence. So sad.
And this one from Shola Butterfly, Bejide Butterfly says, still on Kaduna student abduction, it's really sad and unbelievable that in Nigeria, parents of kidnapped children now beg the federal government on national TV to lead them into negotiating with bandits if the federal government can't help them. We're in a very grave situation. The best time to act is now. I sincerely hope that somebody and anybody, especially in government, is watching this morning and, would at least reach out to the parents and see what can be done. But a lot of Nigerians are worried about the situation. Well, thank you so much for sending your comments and messages. And thank you for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Kayode Okikiodo.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.
I'm Chamberlain, so we'll see you again tomorrow.